Well, hey, in this video, I'll teach you how to draw your character turned in different directions. This will include things like noses, hair, snouts, arms, feet, and more. Okay, let's start with the head. And this step is super simple. Just scoot over the face. Now notice I didn't actually change the face itself. To show you what I mean, I'll keep the face stationary and scoot the head around. And as I do, the eye perceives magically that the head is moving. So if you want the head turned to the left and down a little, scoot the face to the left and down a little. Want your character looking up, scoot the face up. Want your character looking down, scoot the face down. I'll end with my character facing to the right, and next I'll show you how to turn the body. Okay, so I'm going to hide the arms for now, and I'll add a belt buckle, and then I'll simply scoot it all over to the right. And voila, the body looks like it's turned to the right. Of course, you might need to erase a little depending on what and how much you scoot. But yeah, move stuff to the left and the body looks like it's turned to the left. I'm going to end with mine facing right though. And now let's talk about stuff that goes on the back of the body. So if you have something that goes on the back of the body like wings or backpacks or tails, you have to scoot stuff backwards. If you have a mullet and bangs, the bangs would scoot in the same direction the head is facing, and then the mullet would go in the opposite direction. So if my character's head is turned to the left, the bangs should scoot left, and then the mullet scoots right. As for the arms, it's super important to think of the arms as separate from the body. Then scoot both arms in a little bit. Then erase the part of the far arm where it overlaps the body. In effect, you're hiding the far shoulder and keeping the closer shoulder. And this works with whatever kind of arm your character has. Just scoot both arms in and erase the far arm where it overlaps the body. The arms themselves can do whatever. Go in front, go behind. Just make sure you keep the nearer shoulder visible and the far shoulder hidden. And note that the shoulders don't have to be super obvious. Just something like this works too. And this technique works for anything that's attached normally to the sides of the body, like horns or Princess Leia hair buns or ears. Just scoot both things in and hide the part of the far-sided object where it overlaps the body, or in this case, head. Now, I'll add some of those other details in, and we can see that there's really 3 layers going on here. There's stuff in the front, like bangs and the belt buckles. There's stuff attached to the side, like the arms and ears. And then there's the stuff on the back of the body, like the wings and the mullet. All that's left is the legs and feet. And legs can really kind of work like arms, but it might look weird. That's because the legs usually grow more from the bottom of the body than the side. So usually I just stick the legs on the bottom. Now as for the feet, think of each foot as a steep hill. And if the foot is facing you, then that's about it. Other than adding the details, you're kind of done with the basic shape of the foot. But as the foot turns, one side of the hill gets stretched out. So if the foot turns to the right, stretch out the right side of the hill. The more it turns, the more you stretch. If you stretch it a lot because the foot's turned almost all the way, then you need to probably shrink in the left side of the hill. Now for my character, it looks more natural if the closer foot is turned a little bit, so only stretch the right side of the hill out a little bit, but then the farther foot is stretched out a lot more because it's turned more almost, well, pretty much all the way to the side. But I think it might look even better if the near foot is actually facing completely forward, so it's just a small symmetrical hill. And it's subtle, but try to round out the bottom of the feet just a tiny bit, just to show that it's a curved surface below eye level. Now that we've covered the basics, let's go over some finer points. First, noses, and really bumps on the body. Now, any kind of bump should usually open up to the middle of whatever body part it's on. If it helps, think of the greater than, less than symbol being like an alligator that eats the bigger number, except in this case, the big number is in the middle of the body part. So if the face is to the right, then of course the nose would join it in the middle of the face, but it would also open up to the middle of the head. And if it's over here, it would open, well, once again to the middle of the head, and so forth. And this goes for any nose shape, even if it's like a really long nose. Incidentally, a lot of cartoon characters connect the noses to the lips, like SpongeBob, Fred Flintstones, all the Simpsons. And it makes sense if you think about what's really happening when the human head is turned to the side. So maybe you want to try that, and depending on your character, you could also throw in a chin. It just depends. Now, so far, we've just been scooting over the faces and the shirt collars to make things look turned, but in reality, any details on the surface of a curved form should appear foreshortened as they face away from you. So you can try this out by flattening any details that are really near the edge of any of the rounded body parts. And it's subtle, but it maybe makes your character look a little bit more convincing. To ground your character so it's not just floating in space, you might want to try throwing in a quick shadow. A good all-purpose shadow shape is a really flat oval. And you generally want the top of the oval to be a tiny bit above the bottom of the feet, and the bottom of the oval a tiny bit below the bottom of the feet. Now, if your character is a dog or a dragon or a bear or something like that, then you probably have a snout situation. And just like any other front detail, the snout should scoot in the same direction that the head is pointing. But you also have to be sure to scoot over the details inside the snout. If you leave the details in the snout facing forward, it just looks kind of weird. So if the snout is turned to up and to the right, then the stuff inside the snout should also be turned up and to the right, and so forth. If it helps, you can think of the snout as having its own separate face, which has to be pointed in the same direction as the direction that the snout's pointed in. And you can see all these steps we talked about at play here with these organic rounded forms. But if your character is boxy, like BMO or Nickel here, yeah, it doesn't quite work. You'll have to use two-point perspective to actually redraw the box as it rotates. And that's another video. But you can read about it in Chapter 5 in my book. And also in Chapter 4, it talks about how you can take these concepts and apply them to realistic heads and bodies. So there's that. Anyways, I hope this video has been helpful. And if you're curious about some of the characters I've made, or you just want to see what kind of art I make, come check out my website.